So with the Dallas Cowboys having a new defensive coordinator, that might close the door for somebody that started for this defense for 3 years now. And not long ago, we were complaining about him being a Pro Bowl snub. Jayron Kearse, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about it. Here we go. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime, usually live Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. Tonight, it is a recording, though, because, man, I couldn't make the show, but I didn't want to leave you hanging without content for the night. So here we are talking about Jayron Kearse. He's somebody that we've discussed, a little bit during the show over the last couple of weeks because he is set to become a free agent in March. And I believe he's somebody that had Dan Quinn stuck around for another year, he would have had a tough time being re-signed by the Cowboys, even with Dan Quinn. However, the recent coaching news of him taking over the Washington Commanders, Mike Zimmer coming into the picture for Dallas, to me, rules it out completely. I think Jayron Kearse is not coming back for the 2024 NFL season, and that's not even because he is set to command a very expensive extension. As a matter of fact, according to ADC Sports contract projections, we had 105 done, by the way, for this year's free agency class, in case you want to check it out on the website over at ADC Sports, or you can Google ADC Sports top 105 free agency projections. But Jayron Kearse is expected to sign for a 2-year deal worth $6 million, $3 per year, with only $2 million guaranteed, and a year one cap hit of $2 million. So financially, you know what? If the Cowboys wanted to keep Jayron Kearse, they might be able to. But keep in mind, they're making the decision based off of 2024 Jayron Kearse. And boy, is he different than the 2021 version of Jayron Kearse. Let me read you what I wrote about Jayron Kearse back in 2021, actually January or December of 2021, I think. But this is what I wrote. And it's crazy to read now because 2023 did not go great for the Cowboys hybrid safety / linebacker, man. I wrote, Kearse represents the biggest Pro Bowl snub for the Dallas Cowboys in 2021. He's been one of the biggest surprises of the year. He's turned into a full-time strong safety for the Cowboys that consistently makes plays when defending the run and in pass coverage. Now, you might be thinking about the last version we saw of him, the latest version, and you might be thinking, man, that doesn't resemble at all what we saw last season, because Jayron Kearse did struggle last season, and we're going to get into the numbers that back it up in a little bit here on the show. However, it was true then, and you looked at the numbers, compare them to Harrison Smith, who actually made the Pro Bowl that year, and Jayron Kearse had the better season. 100%, especially so because he was such a dynamic player. Harrison Smith also is a very dynamic player, of course, really a great chess piece that I'm looking forward to seeing who takes that role, because in 2021, Harrison Smith was still playing for Mike Zimmer, who is taking over the Cowboys defense and who is going to want like this chess piece that can rush the passer, but can also drop back into coverage, but be a physical presence versus the run. And we'll talk about who can take on such a role in a little bit here. But man, Jayron Kearse just has seen a steep decline since then. Year 3 in Dallas looked completely different than year 1. And let me show you some examples of why. Let me tell you some examples as to why that is. First year on the team, he ends up being second best in PFF coverage grade in the team. So better than most Cowboys defenders in coverage. And keep in mind, he was shadowing tight ends, right? He was traveling with tight ends and playing one-on-one versus them. It wasn't like he was just good playing certain zones underneath. No, he was matching up versus these guys and showing what he got. And he had some premier matchups too versus some of the best tight ends in the league, and he still held his own. Fast forward to 2023, and he ranked 25th within the team in coverage grade. Now, you can tell me all you want about what it means, like a grade, which is subjective for Pro Football Focus, but that decline of being second on the team to 25th shows you something. And it matches the numbers as well. Jayron Kearse allowed an 81% catch rate last season for Dallas. And that wasn't the only area of his game where he struggled to really find some rhythm. Year one, he had an insane 4.1% missed tackle percentage, one of the best in the league by a wide margin. That more than doubled in 2023. So he went for 4.1% missed tackle percentage, and he ended up being 10.7%. That's more than double, and it's one of the worst rates in the NFL. Really, really a decline in Jayron Kearse all across his game. And his best shot at sticking around was probably Dan Quinn also sticking around, because Dan Quinn really believed in that vision that he had for Jayron Kearse, where he's a linebacker, but he's also a safety, and the line is extremely blurred in that sense. It's not Marquise Bell going from safety to linebacker. Jayron Kearse was doing both at the same time, and for a good while, it worked very well. Keep in mind, when Jayron Kearse entered the picture in Dallas, there were some of us who thought, hey, this might be somebody that earns a role on special teams, right? Like that was kind of our vision maybe for Jayron Kearse. And he ended up becoming one of the best defensive players on the team that year. Has not looked the same, though, since then. Now, also not playing on Jayron Kearse's favor is that although his contract projection looks like a very doable one, the Cowboys have been prepping for Jayron Kearse hitting free agency. So much so that there are not one, but two young options at safety that the Cowboys could very well move forward with. One of them played linebacker for you last year, and he started for you a bunch of games. Marquise Bell. Marquise Bell, I think, it's not gonna take a whole lot for him to move back to the secondary and shine there, because specifically what he did best for the Cowboys was cover. So I'm perfectly comfortable with, having him go back to the defensive backfield and try to thrive there. Had one of the best coverage grades by any linebacker in the NFL. He's likely going to be able to transition back to safety. Keep in mind, that's the position that he was prepping for last season. He didn't go through training camp practicing at linebacker, which is something that I believe sometimes we forget. A lot of people know about Jayron Kearse taking over at linebacker, but we forget that happened in August and not in July, where he could go through a full training camp trying to get ready for the position. Players and coaches went on the record explaining that during the game, or right before the plays, before the ball was snapped, they were communicating to Marquise Bell directly what his role was, right? Like, this is your gap, this is what you're going to do. Like, maybe it was a quick communication, but the Cowboys had to micromanage that. And now you can just let him go and be free and play the position that he wants. Now, that's only one guy. We could also get into none other than Juan J. Thomas, that really showed some very promising flashes. Obviously, a young player that still needs to go through a learning curve and still needs to develop. But Juan J. Thomas, man, looked like a physical presence when tackling, and he looked like he could cover, right? And he could hold his own, in coverage. So the Cowboys have two younger options than Jayron Kearse that are going to be cheaper. Even if Jayron Kearse is going to be chipped himself in free agency, chances are at least. And there's a new defensive coordinator coming into town that might not be prone to playing as much dime personnel as the Cowboys were. So that's one fewer starting spot for a safety on your team. You're no longer playing with three safety defensive sets necessarily. I think we're going to see the Cowboys tone that down a whole lot with Mike Zimmer. Now, that doesn't mean they still that nickel won't be the base, but it just be much fewer dime personnel snaps in 2024. So, long story short, Cowboys fans, I don't think Jayron Kearse is coming back for another year with Dallas in 2024. He's likely going to end up signing somewhere else. And who knows? That might be in the NFC East following Dan Quinn and Joe Witt to Washington and the Commanders. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button for me. We will be back live here on the show on Wednesday, and we'll have some fun talking about the Cowboys. Hit the like button for me. And as always, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to Primetime. Hit the like button.